Hello and welcome to Pop of Passion. Join me, Jack Sparker, comedian and highly sensitive person, along with a guest every other week as we delve into our deepest passions, from being a plant dad to conquering insecurity with comedy. If you relish the memory of an unexpected late-night conversation with a stranger about their obscure passion, the kind where you have tears in your eyes one second and are doubled over laughing the next, this is the podcast for you. All right. Hello and welcome to Pop of Passion. I'm Jack Sparker and I'm so glad you're here. My guest today could read out loud at the age of 3. She co-hosts the podcasts Kardashian It, A Funny Feeling, and Patreon exclusive 90 Day Bae and the newly launched L is for Losers. She has written for Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and you may recognize her from Comedy Bang Bang, Throwing Shade, or the UCB stage. Please welcome to Pop of Passion, Marcy Jarreau.
Hi.
Hi, Marcy. How are you doing today?
It sounds so braggy to be like, I could read out loud at the age of...
How do you know that you could read at 3? Is that like a family story, or do you remember reading at 3?
I do. Let's see. It's so hard because I've heard people say that there's no way I could remember that, but I definitely have memories of being pretty young and reading. I think it's because I had a sister and my cousin were 6 years older than me. So they read to me a lot when I was little. But I mean, I went to kindergarten when I was 4 and I was in college at the age of 17, not because I skipped. So I was the youngest child in school, like in my grade. But I definitely was reading at 3. Maybe it was closer to like the end of the age of 3. But I was always had my little books, and I can remember like reading everything I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I hate to read now. I never read now.
That is so funny how we love things when we're little and they just leave us and they serve us for a time, but that's fine, not forever. So I was going to ask you, you don't know what I'm going to ask. What is your passion, Marcy Jarreau?
I mean, I have many, but I would say that like a thing that I'm very passionate about too, that I would like to have other people feel passionate about, is trusting your gut and your intuition.
I love that. So what does that mean to you?
You know, it's one of those things where I can never, I only exist in my own body, right? So I only know how I feel about things in my first impressions. But I think that, you know, oftentimes we have an instinct about something, whether it's like a person or a thing we want to do or whatever it is. And instead of just going with the instinct, we think about it more and like, well, what does that mean? Or maybe I shouldn't think that about that person, or like, you know, that's not fair, or, you know, all these things. And I find more often than not, my initial instinct is always correct. I just don't have the justification for it yet.
Totally. There are so many instances where I've felt the same way. I wonder, like, what's an example of a time when you've felt that feeling, and also, like, what does it feel like physically?
You know, well, you know, the simplest examples are always people when you're like, well, I don't like them. I know I don't like them. And people will be like, but they're so nice. What are you talking about? I'm like, just wait and see.
Yeah.
Just wait. I've gotten to a point now where I trust it so much that I'm like, you're all going to see why. I don't even know why yet, but we're all going to see this.
Yeah.
Why we should stay away from this red flag.
Yes. I love thinking about red flags, and I've tried to not be so negative in my life. So I've been thinking a lot about like, hey, look for the green flags. And I do that like in my day job. I do it in my real life, and it never fails to be aware of how you're feeling.
Oh, yeah. I talk about this in therapy. I'm also very passionate about therapy.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that emotion feels physical before you understand what it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can feel a little stunned by the emotion of something. Like I know that I'm angry, but it's so hard to articulate what about this situation made me upset, or how like I'm not angry because I'm angry. I'm angry because I'm like, you hurt my feelings. And it's really hard to, yeah, to be able to put into words all the things that made you feel that. But your brain processes that quickly that
Yeah.
it knows to send those signals throughout your body even before you fully understand what it is. And I think that the same can be said for intuition, that your body's responding to the environment around you. And sometimes we just tell our body, like, no, 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 no. Like we're like, that's anxiety or whatever. And it can be,
Right.
but I think those things are hand in hand that are like, that's just your body is like really ready to survive.
I love that. My therapist often reminds me when I'm having anxious moments that anxiety is just a breath away from excitement.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm trying to embrace it and like process my emotions as excitement rather than anxiety because it's like it's really just a choice and it's sort of like they're two sides of the same coin, just how you look at it.
Yeah. Also, look, I will say this. It's not for everyone, but for me, whenever I felt like my emotions were driving the bus and it logically didn't make sense to me anymore, I went to a psychiatrist and it was just a processing issue. And I take medication and I don't have as many instances like that where my brain is working overtime to figure out a situation that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, definitely. Just even asking for help is such a huge step, and it's so you get paid back like hugely.
Yes.
And I,
Yeah.
I thank you for mentioning like that you go to therapy because I think people will be inspired, and also that you take medication. Like that's so important to me and has been since I was like 13 and I started a therapy journey on medication. So like, thank you for sharing that because it's huge and it's important. And I wish more people would at least see it as an option,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
And there's nothing to feel like. Would you feel embarrassed if you needed, like, if you were a diabetic who needed insulin? Like,
Right?
no, or even if you had, like, hypothyroidism or something that you're like, my body's just not regulating itself this way, but with this medication, it helps. Now, it's not the, it doesn't solve everything, but it helps me to not be in the danger zone.
Totally. Yeah. There's like levels. And my therapist describes like a ladder, and you're on different rings of the ladder. And when you're at the top, like you're like too high. So you got to be in the middle. And you
Yes.
know, it's all about balance.
Yeah. You have to at least like hang out in the middle more than you hang out at the top or bottom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. My psychiatrist said when I first started, and I think I waited too long. Or if I could go back in time, I think I would try to get this help sooner.
Right.
Because I think it would have really made a lot of things a lot easier for me. And it would have taken away a lot of self hate and self blame.
Yeah.
But he said to me that, uh, you know, pain is inevitable and suffering is a choice, which is like half true because if we have access, we can make choices. I only had access because I was very poor at the time. I didn't even have health insurance, but I knew him personally and he was like, I got you. I'm going to care for you. And I was just so lucky that like I knew him and
Right.
he did me that huge favor of not charging me.
Yeah. Access to mental health care is huge and it's so important. And I could like cry thinking about it. But I love that you like found someone and it's almost like whatever you believe, like that person was placed in your path.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
I also think that it's another example of gut instinct with this. Like, I knew the family of this, my doctor, and the gut instinct is what drew us together to be like, we like each other. You're smart and you're funny and you're cool. And he has like a smart, funny, cool family. And I was friends with his kids through another friend who's related to them. And then, like, because how weird is it to be like friends with your friend's cousins? But like, there was
Yeah.
that instinct to us to draw each other together.
Yeah. That That's so funny because I come from a very large Irish family, so it is very normal to be friends with your friends' cousins because everyone in my town is Irish and we all have a million cousins, so we don't get to choose our friends. They're just our cousins for most of our life. But yeah, it's amazing how people come into your life and make an impact. And it's sort of like this is a little behind the scenes. I did listen to an episode of Kardashian this morning, which when this comes out will be a month old. But you mentioned, people come into your life for a reason, a season, and then the last one is a lifetime.
Thank you. I couldn't remember it.
Now that you like know that phrase, I know you've only known it for a couple of minutes, like the final version. But do you think you can tell with your gut if someone's there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime?
No, I think it's so hard to know for me, especially because there's so many factors at play.
Yeah,
You know, like it's not it isn't a controlled experiment
yeah,
because I'm only part of it, and other people have so many things in life that will change for them. So it can be hard. And I've had people like drop in and then leave for a while and then come back. So
yeah. I mean, I don't think the reason, season, and lifetime is like foolproof, but I
right.
think if you knew someone was in your life for a reason and that reason was like a lesson and it was sort of more of a negative experience that you can turn into a positive by viewing it as a lesson, maybe we wouldn't go through with things because we'd
Yeah.
be afraid of the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And just how much we can grow from the bad experience or it's so funny, like now that I'm in therapy, to think of things as like good or bad is a bit harder. Everything's a little bit more gray now because of all this, because we know that
Yeah.
there's so much affects us and how we think and we'll deal with things in the future. So
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many factors, and you can never account for another human because humans are full of change and ever evolving. So, like, you really don't know what you're going to experience.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's kind of like a nice part of life, though. Because if I knew, I don't know, I don't think I would have had as much fun, and I don't think I would have learned from the experiences.
It's so funny because I know that I always wanted, like, I had an idea of what my life was going to be. Like, by this age, I definitely thought would be like so firmly in a career, married with kids. And at this age, I'm like, no, that's that. I mean, some of it would be nice to be like farther along or married or like, I don't know about kids and all that stuff. But I also,
Hmm.
when I was younger, always wanted to be an actor. And I still like find that like I'm still pretty sure I will continue to act occasionally, but it's not the only thing I want to do. However, I was a little embarrassed to say I wanted to be an actor, so I always told people I wanted to be a writer, even though I didn't necessarily mean it. And guess what? I'm a writer now. So,
Wow, I literally just got goosebumps. That I love that, and it reminds me of a Lady Gaga quote that I kind of have lived my life by since I was in high school. She says, like, if you tell the lie enough, it becomes the truth. And basically, the idea to just be delusional in your like self worth.
yeah.
That is so like I think you told the lie enough that you believed it and people believed it, and it happened.
Even funnier than that, though, I told this to people when I was 12. And
Right?
then I kind of stopped talking about it as I got older because I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
So it was a lie that I told long, long, long ago. And it took 20 something, years to come to fruition.
Yeah, but you planted the seed.
Yeah.
It's
Or maybe I knew.
yeah, only you know. Like it's very
I mean,
powerful.
I don't even know though. That's the thing. But I think more than anything, I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller, and I do it in a lot of different ways, whether it's like acting, writing, or podcasting.
Yeah. And there are so many different types of opportunities in this day and age to be a storyteller. I find that's like I've done improv, I've done stand up, I've done storytelling and acting, and the one that I'm like most confident to claim and is storytelling, because it's like it just makes sense. And I think there's something really nice about being a storyteller because you're sharing. It's not like selfish at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, you know, and sometimes you're not even telling your stories, you're telling other people's stories, especially now with like podcasting, because the art of like oral storytelling kind of went away with television.
Yeah.
So it's nice that it's come back in such a big way, and we'll have archives and archives of people telling their stories.
Yeah, forever.
Now, in the future, people are going to be like, God, so many people were murdered because those are going to be
Right.
all those stories.
Yeah, and a bunch of, moms who were bored solved murders, and I love it.
I mean, that's what we should do. We should put more people to task with solving murders.
Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause the people who are supposed to be doing it aren't doing it. So,
Well, they're busy doing other stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's so funny, like, not to be like into like the police stuff, but whenever I was trying to like, my whole family is really conservative, and I was trying to explain like defund the police. I was like, police officers aren't detectives.
Right.
Like, police officers don't solve crimes. They like put tape around it
Yeah.
and like, but then there's a whole other team that does that. We'll still keep those people.
Yeah. No,
We'll have less soldiers though.
Right.
And some of those soldiers can go get other jobs in other ways where they're like, oh yeah, I do this kind of call.
Yeah.
But it's hard for people to conceptualize that reality.
Absolutely. Even I find like my most progressive family members have trouble with the idea of defunding or abolishing the police because they don't like the way it's labeled or like the language around it. But I was writing you an email this morning or yesterday about passion, and one thing I wrote that I actually deleted is I am fascinated by your ability to I wish I could remember what I said because I worked on it for a long time. It was like accept and respect differing views of loved ones, because I'm really bad at it.
It's impossible. I've just like the past year especially has been I've lived away from home for 15 years, but I've never felt so far away from them. They just live a different reality than I do. But and it can frustrate me, especially when I'm talking to them. But it does help me see the rest of the world. It's like I can't say that they're bad people. I just don't. We don't have the same like compass. That's all there is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's something I really have struggled with, especially in the past year, but even before. And I really admire the way that you handle it and talk about it because it makes me want to be better, because I know I don't want to live in this leftist bubble. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a cool life. That's not like a fulfilling life either. So it's definitely something to think about.
Also, like in like regards to like race issues in America, for people, to be like, so you think I'm racist? It's like, well, racism isn't like having green eyes. It's something you do or say or think. It's not a permanent state. But the best way that I understood it when I was like, oh, of course I've been racist. Of course I've done that. Of course I have like internal biases, is like because I know how I did it with internalized misogyny.
Yeah.
And I know how I have to fight it all the time.
Yeah.
When you have this like gut instinct to be like, ugh, I mean, I don't know why people are you're like, this is internalized. It wasn't just that I was taught it in my family structure. I was taught it in society.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
Yeah. And it's not permanent. So, hey, if someone says you did something that was racist or misogynistic, chill out, think about it, and try to change it if you don't like the feeling of being labeled like that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to like accept that we are ever evolving and ever changing, and like to accept that other people can also evolve and change. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. That, like, if someone did something in the past, you don't have to label them as that thing forever.
right,
I mean, the caveat being that if they never acknowledge it, then it's really hard for anyone to heal from it.
right.
But, kind of like back to the like policing, it's like, I have a friend who's taught me a lot about restorative justice and that we don't have to throw people away,
Right.
but they do have to make steps to admit what they've done, to reflect on it and change and to never do it again.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about, like, never again. Because that's huge. But that's like the only option. I have a friend who recently hit 100 days sober, and it really is like a day by day thing in both instances. But it's sort of like you have to take it day by day, but also know that, like, it is forever because that is your reality and that's what's best for you and everyone.
Yeah.
The way we affect others. Yeah.
And if we stop thinking about all or nothing, then we can probably get more done.
Yeah.
Like just full across the board, like even with writing, then I'll be like, I didn't do anything today, but I'm like, well, I can do 30 minutes right now. I don't have to write for 8 hours. No one writes for 8 hours. It's impossible unless you're like on drugs. There's no way to do that kind of focused writing.
Yeah.
Especially after being in a writer's room for 3 years. I'm like, do you know how much time is spent looking up gossip and blind items and then playing games? Like, we have to take a break from it. So, a thing I do, and again, everything in my life is an analogy, but if I can just like set a timer and write for 20 or 30 minutes, I will get so much more done than a week of feeling bad because I'm not doing all the perfect thing to write.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like, I sit in front of my computer, then I'm like, oh, I went shopping instead.
Yeah. I often set alarms for like 10 minutes in the future and I label it what I have to do because I can't do it in the moment. And if I set the alarm, I don't know, it's like magic. I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if that's like, for me, an ADD thing, possibly, that I'm overwhelmed by all the things in front of me. But if
Yep.
I know I have like a very small amount of set time that I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen the movie or read the book about a boy?
I haven't.
In it, the main character talks about thinking of his day in 30-minute chunks. That like he has like, this is a section, this is another. So all, because he doesn't do anything. So he's like, I just break it up into 30 minutes all day long.
Wow. I bet that's more effective than what I do.
Well, because we just feel guilty. And like, I should have said my passion is trying to get away from guilt, because that's what all of this has been about. It's like life isn't good or bad or black or white. Like we have feelings that don't feel pleasurable to us.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean they're always bad, because we can't see the full picture. And vice versa, that some things feel really good and they actually won't long term be good. And but to get away from like shaming yourself and punishing yourself more because you didn't meet expectations is, I think, really important. I was just talking to a friend last night who was like gonna not drink for a month, and then they were drinking, and they were like, I felt really bad because I even thought about that. I told you I wasn't gonna drink for a month, and then I was like buying alcohol, and I thought about it, and I was like whatever, man. Like, you made the rule. You don't have to feel bad about it. You can do it tomorrow. Like, whatever it is, like, feeling worse about it is not gonna help you reach your goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's like this past year for me, and everyone, we've all learned so much about ourselves. But the thing I've been working on the most is managing my expectations of others and of myself, because I love him, but I have this grandpa, and he's like larger than life, from Ireland, great guy, but he absolutely has the highest expectations for himself, and he passed that on to all of us. And there's a million of us, so we have these expectations of each other within the family, but then I expect others to be like the family, and they weren't raised in that house, in the house's subsequent houses, but I find that I expect so much out of everyone because I expect so much out of myself. And then I don't know which one's worse, when I don't live up to my expectations or when others don't live up to my expectations. But basically, it doesn't matter which one's worse because they both suck in the moment and for the moments after.
Yeah. Yeah. And to just try to, I don't know, to not hold on to that, because if you're disappointed and you let that affect every moment thereafter with the person you feel disappointed with, then to be like, well, this isn't fun. This doesn't feel like, I don't enjoy this. So either they're so disappointing that I don't need to interact with them, or they're so disappointing that I need to like tell them about my disappointment and see if they can change some things.
Yeah.
Or I accept it.
Yeah. I think sometimes we feel like, I always know going into it, like, oh, this is going to disappoint me, because that's another expectation. And even if I expect to be disappointed, when I'm disappointed, I'm still upset about it. But it's weird how, like, we always know. You know what I mean? Like, when you said your passion was listening to your gut, it resonated with me, because my mom growing up, her thing was listen to your heart. And a lot of people say that their physical manifestation of the gut is their chest or stomach. And I think everyone has a different, thing, but we all know what's going on, and we all know. No one's like, well, there are some people who I think are psychic, but we don't know, but you really know with a capital K.
Yeah. It's funny, like, thinking about people who are psychic, or I'm one of those people that's like, I'm empathic.
Yeah.
And it's really like, maybe it's a magical skill, but also, is it part of my environment that I had to be attuned to other people very young?
Yeah.
And then I had to know, I had to have my gut checks when I was young. I also think that I come from a family of detectives, so which is very funny for my views on.
Well, yeah.
But like I said, you keep some of those jobs, but some of them we just reallocate.
Exactly.
You go to other departments.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone is out of a job. I'm saying we get more specialized skills.
Yeah.
But I have a family of detectives, and I feel like that I have a heightened sense of first instinct gut checks, and maybe even at a young age hearing discussions of pathologies.
Yeah. Wow. I think so much of what we hear as a child really absorbs, and I find myself scared around children because I don't want to affect them in any negative way. And then it's sort of like I don't get to form a meaningful connection with those children because I'm scared of impacting them negatively. Oh.
Well, I have friends that are raising. Oh, am I cutting out?
I think you're back.
Yeah,
you're
can
good.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have friends that are raising small children, and they are like, "Oh my God, I was so short with my kids today. Did I ruin them?" I'm like, probably not. There's so many days in between now and then. As long as if you could explain to a child, if you could tell a child the truth more than you shield them from it, you'll save them so much. If you could just be like, I'm sorry today if I wasn't, nice to you, or if you felt I wasn't giving you enough attention. I was feeling blank, blank, blank. That kid then learns how to, like you said, you feel disappointed by people. You learn how oh, I'm not disappointed as much by that person. They were going through something, and it's easier to understand why things didn't work out the way I wanted because some other factors were at play here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, yeah, there's never just one factor.
No.
Yeah, that's
No. And most people are never trying to hurt anyone else.
that's so true.
Even like psychopaths aren't necessarily like being like, I want to, I mean, this is again not 100%, but people who are like, who don't care about other people just don't care. They also don't always want to torture them.
Yeah. Wow. I
Or
want
like
to
narcissists.
Yeah, no, totally like that we need to carry that with us that we aren't that important in other people's lives most of the time.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that's
again,
okay.
some people are out to like really, especially if you've gotten on someone's radar and you're an enemy, that they're like going to take that can happen. It's just so much less likely than someone truly not factoring you into their day. And then you become an obstacle rather than a human.
Right.
It's so hard. Like, honestly, isn't this also, it's all compassion. Like,
Yeah.
the umbrella is all like, the battle between being compassionate and trusting yourself, because you can also be compassionate to other people and what's they're going through, but that doesn't mean you have to subject yourself to it. And
Yeah.
that's where I think the gut and compassion kind of hold hands together, when you can marry those things.
I love that.
Because it feels negative to judge, like, ugh. But
Yeah.
if you're like, I can understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and I also do not have to be a part of it.
Yeah. A wise woman once said, I'm not taking that on.
Yes, June Diane Raphael, right?
Yes, yes.
Raphael, sorry.
Yeah. So, it's, I guess I'll close this portion by saying that you get to choose what you take on and choose what you don't take on. And if you listen to your gut, it might be easier. So now I like to do a little question that has to do with the word pop. I call it Pop Ponderings. I actually just named it this morning. And there have already been episodes recorded, so you're the first Pop Pondering officially.
Ooh.
So pop is an informal term for a father. What is your favorite lesson that you ever learned from your dad? But I would like to open this up to either of your parental figures.
Oh, man. Well, just because of, you said my dad first, and my parents are both together, so they're a real yin and a yang unit.
Yeah.
But my dad is playful, and I think I learned that from him. Like, I remember so distinctly when I was a little girl and not yet brushing my own teeth, that he would like sit on the floor in the bathroom and pretend that he was a dentist chair. So he would hold me with recline me with one arm and then talk as a dentist to me, like, "Oh, Miss Jarreau, oh, your teeth are looking," and he would brush my teeth.
Yeah.
And that sense of play and playfulness, I think I've taken it throughout my life, because I can be serious, but also I know how to, I don't know, be fun and light with people.
Yeah, and even in your professional life, like to go from playing with your dad to being an improviser to being a writer, like I see the thread.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And it kind of like, I don't know, like, especially when things are getting tense, to be able to break the tension too.
Yeah. That's huge. That's my favorite emotion, is when you're feeling one thing and then the next minute you're feeling the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're really angry and then someone makes a joke, or it's often broken up by laughter.
Yeah.
Because that's hopefully the end goal. If you were laughing and then within a minute you're crying, that's not great. And you probably that wouldn't be your favorite emotion, but yeah, that's cool.
I mean, what is Dolly's character in Still Magnolias, that she's like, laughter through tears is my favorite emotion.
Yes. Yeah. That is like the essence of what I'm trying to live my life, because it's the highs and the lows, and it's the black and the white and everything in between, and all the colors and all the grays, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's we're very lucky we get to like just live this life, and we're like having a conversation on a Monday. I want to thank you for being here. And before I let everyone go, we're going to do passion plugs. So I'm going to go first. We're going to end on yours. Passion plug is basically anything you want to plug in the entire world. And today my passion plug comes in honor of my cousin Margot, who for many years was the baby of our large Irish family, but somehow manages to be one of the absolutely wisest people I know. And someone who I don't want to provide a platform to, but I empathize with deeply, once said, listen to the kids. And that's what I'm doing today. So Margot would like you to check out Chicago Freedom School, which is rooted in the long legacy of liberatory education. They provide training and education for young people and adult allies to create a just world. Check it out, learn more, get involved, and donate if you're able at chicagofreedomschool.org. So, Marcy, what is your passion plug?
I'm plugging the Loveland Foundation that was founded by Rachel Cargill. And it is a foundation that partners with other places like Therapy for Black Girls, National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network, Talkspace, and Open Path. So they work with those organizations to provide therapy to people who wouldn't always have access to it, and especially people who maybe in a community where therapy isn't the norm, to give that option to people. Especially the past year, it's been traumatic.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
And re-entering the world as we are now, it's like everything's not going to just be great and fine. You're going to have a lot of feelings, and it's really nice to have a therapist to talk through those things with.
Yes. Yeah, that is a great organization. Thank you so much for sharing it with me and all the listeners. Marcy, this has been a joy.
So
and
fun.
absolutely an honor to me, like having listened to you for years and looking up to you. This is huge. So,
oh my God, that's so nice.
I hope I wasn't too nervous or awkward, but you made me feel comfortable. So I just want to say thank you once more.
Oh,
and
thank you for having me. Yeah.
Do you want to let the listeners know where to follow you online or anything?
Yes. Let's see. I feel like I do more Instagram than anything else. And I like to say that I curate TikToks.
You do. You do.
In my stories. Especially I feel like I'm just at the top end of millennials. Mm-hmm. So, or yes, I'm like one of the older millennials, but I feel like my generation needs help with like understanding why we like a TikTok. So anyway, but on Marcy Lane, the number 2, Marcy Lane 2 on Instagram. And you can find out all my other things from there too, and podcasting and all that stuff.
Everything will be linked to in the show notes. I want to thank everyone for listening to Pop of Passion, produced by Christine Ferreira. You can follow the show on social media at Pop of Passion on all the places, and popofpassion.com. I'm Jack Sparker. Go out and be the light, living your passion.